I had barely stepped off the 6-hour flight when my brother, Declan, planted himself in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes empty, like I was a stranger trespassing on my own bloodline. Mom and Dad stood behind him, silent, frozen, almost relieved he said it instead of them. So I tightened my grip on my suitcase, swallowed what little dignity I had left, and walked away, having no idea this moment would burn our entire family apart. From the outside, the Lanes looked like a Hallmark family, polished smiles, matching Christmas sweaters, the kind of people neighbors pointed at and whispered, "They've got it all together." But inside our house, love wasn't tenderness or warmth. It was performance. It was loyalty to the Lane name, loyalty to the family business, loyalty to the reputation my parents worshipped more than their own children. Declan fit the mold perfectly. Blonde, loud, charming, he walked into every room like it owed him applause. People adored him because he knew exactly how to shine under the spotlight my parents built for him. And me? I was the steady one, the planner, the fixer, the daughter who made things run but was never seen doing it. I could stay up all night finishing inventory, organizing files, handling customers during rush season, and Mom would still say, "Declan works so hard. We're proud of him." Meanwhile, I'd be standing right there, invisible enough that even my own heartbeat felt muted. There wasn't screaming or chaos, just a constant, quiet ache. The kind of sadness that teaches you to smile softly, nod politely, and shrink yourself so no one accuses you of wanting attention. I spent my whole life convincing myself their approval didn't matter. But the truth was harsher. In our family, effort meant nothing. Image was everything. Growing up, I learned early that my achievements only mattered if they somehow made my brother look better. When I won my first school art award, my parents told the guests, "He helped her. She just follows him." I stood there smiling like it didn't hurt, pretending I hadn't poured my whole heart into that painting. Whenever I tried something new, singing, writing, even small presentations, my family treated my talent like a coincidence. But when my brother tried the same things, the whole house celebrated as if he'd invented the skill himself. He didn't need to be good, he only needed to exist. And he knew it. He learned to take credit like it was part of his personality. If I stayed up all night baking for my mother's birthday, he would walk in the next morning and claim he planned everything. My parents praised him while I washed dishes quietly in the background, invisible again. There are moments from childhood that still sit heavy on my chest. Like the day I earned a scholarship and ran home bursting with excitement, only to hear my father say, "Good, but your brother just made the cricket team. That's real achievement." Or the time I fainted during a school event and my mother rushed past me to find my brother's missing notebook instead. It wasn't open cruelty. It was a slow, constant message delivered through small moments. I was extra, optional, a spare part in my own family. And somewhere along the way, I learned to swallow that pain quietly, to shrink my voice, to make myself small enough to not disturb the shine they reserved only for him. All I ever wanted was for someone, anyone, to look at me and say, "I see you. You matter too." My parents always described our family business like it was a legacy, something powerful, polished, and prestigious. On the outside, it looked exactly like that: event management, small real estate projects, a few premium services my father bragged about at every dinner. People in town respected our name. They saw us as organized, united, successful. Inside, it was nothing like that. From the moment I was old enough to hold a clipboard, I was treated like a temporary helper. Not a daughter. Not a future leader. Just someone who should assist until my brother arrived to take over, because he was the real heir. That's what my parents called him. Never out loud to outsiders, but always loud enough for me. I sat through meetings quietly while everyone praised his ideas, even when half of them were mine. They'd nod at him, smile at him, listen to him. And then they'd turn to me only when something needed to be printed, sorted, or carried. They dressed the discrimination in politeness, but I felt it every single day. And behind all that shining surface, there were cracks, deep ones. I noticed small things at first: numbers shifted on invoices, times edited on employee sheets, payments delayed for reasons that didn't make sense. I'd ask questions, and my father would say, "Don't overthink. This is how business works." But I wasn't blind. Employees whispered about missing overtime. Vendors complained about being told one price and paid another. And my brother, he learned very quickly how to manipulate those cracks to make himself look smarter, more capable, more powerful. Once, I found him editing digital timestamps on a contractor's report. When he saw me watching, he smiled casually and said, "Relax. This is how winners stay on top." I felt something cold settle in my stomach that day. Another time, a decorator cried in the storage room because her paycheck was cut in half without warning. My mother simply shrugged and whispered, she should be grateful she even has a job. There were fake invoices, forced volunteer hours, and expenses written off under names that didn't exist. The more I noticed, the quieter they wanted me to become. The more questions I asked, the more emotional and overreacting they said I was. And through it all, my brother stood at the center like a prince waiting for his crown, completely certain that everything, including me, existed only to make his path easier. I didn't know it then, but those early red flags, they were the first pieces of truth that would eventually burn their entire illusion to the ground. I wasn't supposed to be part of the business, at least not in any real way. That was made clear to me my entire life. But everything changed the week our accountant quit. My brother stormed into the house, slamming doors and yelling about incompetent employees who couldn't handle pressure. My parents hovered anxiously, trying to calm him down, like he was some fragile king whose anger must be worshipped. Then my mother turned to me. "Can you help your brother? Just until we hire someone new." Just until. Just temporary. Just another moment where my existence only mattered when something went wrong. I said yes, because saying no never felt like an option, not in our family. The first day I walked into the office, the air felt heavy, like it carried secrets waiting for someone foolish enough to notice. I sat at the accountant's desk, opened the first folder, and everything inside me stilled. The numbers didn't add up. Not just by a little, by a lot. Payroll records had been edited at strange hours. Employee names appeared twice with different spellings. Hours were reduced without reason. And payments were missing, whole chunks of them. At first, I thought it was sloppy bookkeeping. But then I found the grant documents. A community grant meant for youth apprenticeship programs. Approved. Received. Signed for. Except, the program never happened. The signatures were there, my father's, and my brother's. The money was withdrawn, but there was no record of where it went. Only vague internal notes like consultation fees and miscellaneous services. My heart started pounding in my ears. I kept flipping through files, hoping, praying, that I was misunderstanding something. But every page only made the picture darker. By the third day, I confronted him. I waited until he finished bragging on a call, then walked into his office with the payroll sheets. Why were these hours altered? I asked. He didn't even look up. He just smirked, leaned back, and said, "You're overreacting. Again." I clenched the papers. These are people's salaries. They're missing money. He finally looked at me, bored, amused. "You think you know more than me? You've been here 3 days." "It's not about knowing more," I whispered. "It's about right and wrong." That made him laugh. Actually laugh. "You're so dramatic," he said. "This is business. Grow up." His arrogance filled the room like smoke, suffocating. He acted like he was untouchable, like the rules bent around him. Every time I asked a question, he rolled his eyes. Every concern I raised was labeled emotional, confused, or my favorite. "Don't embarrass yourself. Leave the real work to me." But the files continued to expose him. There were inconsistencies in contractor payments, sudden cash withdrawals, grant money never accounted for, and notes in his handwriting that said things like "fix later" and "move to other file." The deeper I went, the more it felt like I was peeling back a mask he wore proudly while everyone believed he was the brilliant successor. His arrogance wasn't just growing. It was blooming into something reckless, dangerous. And even though I didn't know it then, my involvement had already become the one thing he could not control, could not silence, and certainly could not hide from. I didn't notice the shift all at once. It happened quietly, like someone dimming the lights one click at a time until the room turns dark and you can't remember when you stopped seeing clearly. At first, I thought people were just busy. My parents were in back-to-back meetings. My brother was barking orders. The staff was running around trying to keep up. But then I started seeing the patterns. One morning, I found out about a major client call. After it happened, I checked the email thread and saw that my name simply wasn't there. No CC. No mention. No reminder. like I had never existed in the conversation to begin with. I asked my mother why no one told me. She didn't look up from her laptop. "Oh, it wasn't important," she said, waving her hand. "Your brother handled it." The call was about payroll discrepancies, the very issue I had been working on. Not important. Right. The next week, I walked into the office kitchen and the staff fell silent instantly. Not gradually, instantly. A half-second earlier there was laughing, whispered complaints, casual chatter. And the moment I stepped in, nothing. Just stares, tight smiles, and the uncomfortable shuffle of people trying to avoid eye contact. I poured myself coffee, my hands trembling slightly. My instinct was to leave. To shrink. To not make it worse. But I stayed. When I stepped out, I heard my brother's voice behind me, low and irritated. "I told you, ignore her. She's not staying. She's just filling a chair." My heart dropped so fast it felt physical, like something inside me slipped. I should have confronted him. I should have said something. But all I could do was walk to my desk, close the door, and breathe slowly until my hands stopped shaking. After that, the rejection became routine. Meetings would start without me, even when they were about the files I'd been sorting through. My suggestions were brushed off. My questions were irrelevant. My presence became an inconvenience, something they endured but never welcomed. My father started using that tone again, the one he used when I was a kid, when he wanted me to stop speaking without actually saying the words. My mother acted like I was over-emotional, reading too much into things. She always used the same line, "You know how your brother gets." As if that excused everything. As if that explained why my work, my effort, my voice suddenly meant nothing. But something had shifted in me. A quiet resolve. While they ignored me, I listened. While they shut me out, I watched. While they dismissed me, I documented everything they overlooked. Every altered invoice. Every strange timestamp. Every unsigned withdrawal. Every grant report that didn't match reality. I wasn't just helping temporarily anymore. I was studying patterns. I was collecting threads. I was saving copies of everything, across 3 external drives, encrypted, hidden. My brother thought he was pushing me out. My parents thought they were protecting him by erasing me. But all they were doing was giving me space to build the truth in silence. And truth, once gathered, once organized, once undeniable, becomes a weapon no one sees coming. A week later, when I had almost convinced myself to step back from the family business entirely, something unexpected arrived. A glossy, gold-embossed envelope. My name was written on it in a calligraphy style I recognized instantly, my mother's attempt at making everything look more refined. Inside was a formal invitation to our company's annual gala, the biggest event of the year. My brother's name was printed in bold across the center, hosted by Declan Clark, Executive Director. Of course he made sure everyone saw that title. Of course the invitation looked like a personal victory parade. Still, a small, foolish part of me hoped it meant something. Maybe they wanted me there. Maybe they were finally acknowledging the work I'd been doing behind the scenes. Maybe things were shifting. I held the invitation for longer than I should have, tracing the raised letters with my thumb. I imagined walking in, being greeted, hearing something, anything, that sounded like appreciation. Hope is strange like that. Even when the door keeps shutting, even when you know better, it tries again. I decided to go. Not out of pride. Not out of spite. But because some part of me still wanted my family to look at me and see more than a placeholder. I even bought a gift. A small handcrafted pen for my brother. Something meaningful. Something symbolic. A gesture of good faith, hoping he might meet me halfway. I wrapped it carefully, tied it with a ribbon, and placed it in a tiny velvet box. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to believe that maybe this night could be different. The night of the event, I arrived earlier than anyone would consider normal. Hope has a way of dragging you toward people who have never once turned around for you. The venue looked beautiful, warm lights, tall glass doors, polished stone steps. For a moment, standing there with a small gift in my hands, I let myself believe this could be the night something finally changed. But the door opened. And he stepped out. Declan. Sharp suit, expensive cologne, shoulders squared like the world existed to applaud him. His expression didn't shift when he saw me. No surprise. No welcome. Just irritation. Like I'd interrupted a meeting he didn't want me in. I swallowed. Hey. I got the invitation. I thought maybe this time. He didn't even let me finish. You shouldn't be here, he said with a controlled, practiced calm. The kind of tone someone uses when removing a stain from their shirt. My hand tightened around the gift box. Declan. What are you talking about? Mom sent the... He leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice the way he always did right before landing a hit he knew would break me. This event is for people who matter to the company. Then his eyes hardened, and he delivered the line that sliced straight through my chest. You're not family anymore. There was no dramatic pause. No hesitation. He meant it. Behind him, through the half-open door, I saw my parents. My mother looked down. My father's arms were crossed. Neither spoke. Neither corrected him. Neither defended me. The silence wasn't empty. It was full, heavy, suffocating, loud. My throat tightened, not with tears but with something worse. Realization. The gift slipped from my hand and hit the ground softly, the ribbon unraveling like it had been waiting to give up. I stepped back. The air outside felt colder, unforgiving, almost metallic. My heartbeat thudded in my ears, each beat a reminder of how stupidly hopeful I'd been. Declan didn't move. He didn't apologize. He didn't look conflicted. He just stared at me like a stranger inconveniencing him. And that was when something inside me shifted. Not dramatically, quietly, the way ice cracks beneath snow. A clarity colder than the night settled into my chest. If they truly believed I wasn't family, then I had nothing left to lose. I turned around and walked down the steps slowly, deliberately, leaving the gift behind, leaving their silence behind, leaving the last piece of hope behind. I didn't look back. Not even once. I didn't go home after Declan shut that door on me. I just walked. Block after block, through warm streetlights and cold patches of wind, until my feet carried me somewhere without asking permission. A little cafe on the corner, half empty, soft yellow lighting, quiet enough that you could hear your own heartbeat. I slipped into the back booth, the one in the shadows, the one no one notices. My chest felt tight, not the panic kind, just bruised. Like the words "you're not family anymore" had lodged themselves behind my ribs and refused to move. I placed my phone on the table. Then my laptop. Both stared back at me like unopened doors. For a while, I didn't touch anything. I just watched the steam rise from the untouched cup of coffee the barista politely placed by my elbow. I traced my fingertip along the rim, grounding myself, reminding myself that I was still here, even if they didn't want me. And then, slowly, a thought I didn't expect slid into my mind. You saved everything. I blinked. It was true. All those files. All those spreadsheets. All those emails they thought I never saw. The payroll discrepancies. The grant misuse. The invoices that magically duplicated themselves. Declan's late-night instructions to adjust numbers just enough to pass audits. I had them all. My hands trembled, not from fear this time, but from realization. I opened my laptop. The screen lit my face, reflecting a version of me I barely recognized. Hurt, angry, but steady. Folder after folder appeared as I clicked through them. Declan_requests. Edited_payroll. Grant issues_notes. Staff messages. Every file was a piece of a puzzle I hadn't understood until now. Every folder was a doorway I'd walked through quietly, thinking I was fixing his careless mistakes, when really, I was documenting his whole empire of lies. Tears pricked my eyes, but they didn't fall. Not this time. I scrolled through the evidence, and somewhere between page 12 and 37 of a falsified invoice report, something inside me finally clicked into place. They didn't push me out because I didn't matter. They pushed me out because I knew too much. My heartbreak slowly rearranged itself into something sharper, cleaner. Resolve. I took a long, slow breath, the kind you take right before stepping into cold water. Then I opened a new folder. I titled it, Case. Not dramatic. Not emotional. Just factual. Precise. Undeniable. I began dragging files into it one by one, each click sounding louder than it should have, echoing in my ears like tiny verdicts. Click. Payroll manipulation. Click. Grant misallocation. Click. Employee under-the-table payments. Click. Recorded voice notes where Declan told me to stop acting like a compliance officer. Click. 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 Evidence of everything they thought I was too soft to understand. Too desperate to leave. Too loyal to question. But sitting there, under dim cafe lights with the hum of the espresso machine behind me, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Power. Not the kind that dominates, but the kind that protects. The kind that builds a spine where there used to be collapse. I straightened my shoulders. Wiped my cheeks. Closed the case folder like closing a chapter. And for the first time, I wasn't breaking. I was preparing. When the case folder was finally complete, I just stared at it. My fingers hovered over the trackpad, shaking, not from fear, but from the overwhelming clarity that had settled into me like cold water turning into ice. I knew what I had to do next. I wasn't going to confront them. I wasn't going to beg to be included. I wasn't going to knock on doors that were already slammed in my face. I was going to send everything. To the people who actually listened. I clicked open the anonymous reporting portal for the State Labor Board. Then another for the Grant Auditing Office. And one more for a well-known investigative news outlet. The kind that dealt with fraud in small businesses. The kind that exposed quiet corruption that families like to bury under pretty Instagram posts and ribbon-cutting ceremonies. My hands were steady as I uploaded each file. The payroll breakdown. The falsified invoices. The emails. The voice notes. The PDF where Declan's exact wording told me to fix the numbers and stop asking questions. Every megabyte felt like a stone being lifted from my chest. At the end of each submission, there was a blank box. Additional notes, optional. I typed the same thing each time. Employees deserve the truth. Please review the attached evidence. No name. No signature. No trail leading back to me. Just truth. When I finally hit submit, the confirmation screen glowed back at me. A clean, simple sentence. Your report has been received. I exhaled. A real breath. Not shaky. Not stolen. A breath that belonged to me. I closed my laptop gently, like sealing a promise, and slid out of the booth. The cafe door chimed softly as I stepped into the night. For the first time all day, the air didn't feel heavy. I didn't feel small. My steps weren't dragging. They were grounded. I had done something that mattered. Meanwhile, across town, the celebration I wasn't welcome at was in full swing. Declan's big event. The one he had sent a glossy invitation for. The one he blocked me from entering just hours ago. Laughter spilled out of the venue doors. Music thumped. Cars lined the street like a red carpet. I walked past, unseen, a quiet ghost slipping through the noise. But I carried a secret they couldn't imagine. And then, barely an hour later, the shift began. I wasn't inside, but I could feel the ripple from the sidewalk like a tremor under the surface. Phone calls. A buzz of whispers. Venue staff checking their screens with furrowed brows. The first investigator had called the venue directly, requesting documents immediately. Then another. And another. Inside the event, waiters exchanged glances. The sound of laughter began thinning. Someone rushed upstairs to Declan, who was probably giving another arrogant speech about leadership and legacy. I could practically visualize it. Declan's smile faltering. His phone vibrating non-stop. His brows knitting together. His voice tightening as he stepped aside to answer. Hello? Oh, what do you mean an audit? Tonight? This must be a mistake. No. We run a clean business. My parents are here. Yes, I'm the acting director. Wait, hold on. Parents confused. His face beginning to lose color. Guests noticing. Whispers spreading like smoke. Something is happening upstairs. Why is Declan pacing? Did someone report them? Why would the labor board call during his event? Is something wrong with the company? I stood across the street, hands in my coat pockets, blending in with the night. Not angry. Not vengeful. Just calm. They had shown me exactly where I stood. Now the truth was showing them exactly where they stood. And for once, they couldn't silence it. The investigators arrived faster than I imagined. Their dark jackets and clipped badges stood out against the warm lights spilling from the event hall. The air shifted, sharp, tense, like the whole venue inhaled at once. I watched from the far end of the corridor as two officials stepped inside the ballroom. At first, people barely noticed. The music was still playing, champagne still being poured. But slowly heads began turning. Whispering spread like ripples moving across water. "Are those auditors?" someone muttered near the entrance. Another voice, "Why would they be here tonight?" My breath caught when I saw them break through the crowd and walk straight toward Declan Clark. He froze mid-sentence, the confident smile still glued on his face, but his eyes widening just a fraction, because he recognized the badges. He knew exactly what they meant. One investigator leaned in. "We need to speak with you regarding payroll discrepancies and grant documentation." The microphone from the stage picked up the words, amplifying them through the speakers. Conversations died instantly. The room fell into a strange, static silence. Declan tried to laugh it off. "You must be mistaken, this is a private event." But the second investigator lifted a folder. "We have multiple reports, supported by employee testimony and internal documents." I saw Declan's throat tighten. His hands shook as he adjusted his suit jacket. That polished arrogance, the same arrogance that made him push me aside, talk down to me, dismiss everything I did, started to crumble. A few staff members were pulled aside. They nodded nervously, confirming details. Hours of underpaid overtime. Edited timesheets. Grant money that never reached the programs it was meant for. Guests whispered harshly. "Wait, he did what? Is that why the accountant quit?" I heard rumors, looks like they were true. Declan's face drained of color as more files appeared, copies of documents he once insisted didn't exist. The investigators pointed to mismatched signatures, altered dates, duplicated invoices. His voice cracked. This can't be happening. Tonight of all nights." One official cut him off. "Mr. Clark, step aside. We need to continue our review." For the first time in my life, I saw him not as the untouchable golden son, but as a man terrified of being seen for who he truly was. My parents stood behind him, stunned. My father's shoulders slumped as he scanned the pages handed to him. My mother brought a shaking hand to her mouth. Their expressions said everything. They finally understood I wasn't the problem. I never had been. Declan stumbled when they escorted him toward a side room. 200 guests watched in absolute silence as the heir of the Clark family legacy, Mr. Untouchable, trembled under the weight of his own wrongdoing. The glamorous event he built on lies was shutting down, piece by piece. And all he could do was watch it fall apart. The fallout didn't take days. It took hours. By the next morning, Declan Clark's name was everywhere. News alerts, local blogs, industry forums. Words like fraud investigation, payroll violations, grant misappropriation, and pending charges flashed across every screen. The comments were brutal. People who once praised him were now dissecting every rumor they had ever heard. And yet, I didn't feel triumphant. Just steady, quiet inside. Like my heartbeat finally matched the rhythm of my own life again. The family business, our carefully polished legacy, collapsed faster than anyone expected. Clients pulled out of contracts. 2 major partners froze all pending deals. A charity issued a public statement distancing itself. And the event venue released a note confirming serious compliance concerns. Years of reputation, shattered in a single night. My parents stayed inside the house for days. The blinds down. Phones off. Voices low. I heard my father's muffled words once through the half-open kitchen door. How did we not see any of this?" My mother whispered back, barely audible. She tried to tell us. We just didn't listen. But I didn't gloat. I didn't walk in saying I told you so. I didn't rub salt in wounds that were already bleeding. That wasn't the point. I didn't destroy them. They destroyed themselves. Every lie, every time card they edited, every employee they underpaid, it all led them right here. I had simply stopped protecting them from the consequences of their own choices. When investigators officially recommended charges, Declan spiraled. His lawyer tried to paint him as overwhelmed, misinformed, misled, anything but responsible. But the evidence was a mountain, and he was a man trying to climb it with bare, shaking hands. My parents asked me once, quietly, "Did you have anything to do with the report?" I looked at them. Not angry, not bitter, just calm. I didn't do anything except tell the truth. They stared at me with a strange mixture of regret and new understanding, like they were seeing me clearly for the first time. And maybe they were. Because revenge wasn't a scream. It wasn't a scene. It wasn't fire. Revenge was silence. Revenge was truth. Revenge was letting the house they built on lies collapse under its own weight. And all I did was finally step out of the way. When the dust finally settled, I found myself walking alone through the quiet streets near my apartment. Not sad. Not angry. Just empty in a peaceful way, like a room after someone finally opens the windows. I realized something I had never allowed myself to see before. My life had been shaped around trying to breathe in a house that kept closing its doors on me. Every choice I made, every effort, every apology, every attempt to belong, was just me gasping for air in a place that was never meant to let me breathe freely. Declan's words at that door echoed again, not as a wound anymore, but as clarity. You're not family anymore. For so long, those words would have shattered me. But now, they felt like the soft click of a lock opening from the inside. I had spent years holding my breath around them, careful, quiet, controlled, hoping one day they would finally say, "You matter." But the truth was simple. I mattered long before they ever chose to see it. The night after the investigation, I stood by my window, letting the cold air hit my face. For the first time, I inhaled without fear. No weight in my chest. No tightness behind my ribs. Just a full breath that belonged only to me. Losing them didn't break me. It freed me. And as I walked down that street, the world around me felt wider, brighter. Like the air itself was finally choosing me back. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their validation. And I didn't need to keep proving my worth to people who gave it so little space. Some endings don't come with fire. Some come with a long, steady exhale, a release you didn't realize you'd been holding for years. And as the wind brushed against my face, I understood the real victory. I had finally stopped waiting for them to come after me. For the first time, I walked away without hoping they'd run after me. And this time, nothing inside me turned back.